Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? I'm Dave Schools, and it's really great to be here. Good to see you, John Brosio. Good morning, he says, from the City of Angels. Good to see you. We'll be seeing you later today. Andre from Vienna. Hello, hello. Genevieve from North Carolina. Welcome. Hey, Megan, tuning in from Jersey. Welcome. Good to have you here. Amar and Steven, if you guys want to jump on stage, we'll go ahead and kick things off. We've got a really fun event today. And I'm going to do a quick welcome, some intros, and then talk a little bit about how this event works and the platform we're in. Here's Amar.
Hey, everyone.
Everybody say hello to Amar. And Steven, we're waiting for Steven Moore. But in the meantime, so I'm Dave Schools. I'm the founder of Entrepreneur's Handbook, and Amar is our podcast host, the Entrepreneur's Handbook podcast host. Use the emojis down below if you've listened to an episode or two of the Entrepreneur's Handbook podcast. Amar's done a fantastic job and has had some pretty noteworthy individuals on the Entrepreneur's Handbook podcast, including the co-founder of Netflix, Tony Stubblebine, Ed Williams, some really great personalities. Sharu says, "Hi, Amar. How are you, buddy?" She must know you.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's afternoon here in the UK, so just taking it easy now, and then looking forward to chatting to everyone. I obviously missed the last one, but Dave and Steven said it was a lot of fun.
It was so much fun. It was AMA amazing, is my corny little joke. But yeah, this is the second event that we've done of these, and they're a lot of fun. Feel free to use the Q&A. So we're going to launch into a Q&A where we answer questions from anyone in the crowd about how to get started writing, how to make a living from writing, how to grow an audience, how to scale a business to $8 billion. We can get into some of that. How to get published in a big pub, how to launch a podcast and get to 10,000 downloads. There's Steven. Steven, check your mic. You sound a little bit like a robot. In the meantime, what's that?
He sounds like that anyway, right?
Yeah, this is why he's not the podcast host. Steven is the editor of Entrepreneur's Handbook publication on Medium. We, if you're not unfamiliar with Entrepreneur's Handbook, it's one of the top Medium publications. Started 5 years ago, and it's grown to over 220,000 followers. We work closely with Medium to curate some of the best stories about entrepreneurship, startups, and turning ideas into income. So whether you're a freelancer in an agency, a writer, an entrepreneur, raising capital, Entrepreneur's Handbook has content for you. And the mission of Entrepreneur's Handbook, which I like to start with all these events with, is we're dedicated to helping entrepreneurs succeed. And we do this through publishing stories, inspirational stories with practical takeaways. So we really love stories that have a personal narrative and then a practical takeaway that help you generate income, hit your goals, grow an audience, and become an entrepreneur, succeed as an entrepreneur yourself. So with that, let me talk about really a giveaway that we're doing. So if you're here in this event, there's 38 of you in this event. The most engaged attendees are going to win 2 courses, my course and Amar's course. And Amar, if you want to talk about your course, I'm going to pull up a visual while you do that.
So my course is called the Founder Writing Crash Course. And essentially what we've been doing in the last couple of years, I've been part of Entrepreneur's Handbook, is we talk to so many founders, all these stories come in. And so many people just don't know how to do it correctly, like you said, with using their personal stories to really connect with the audience. And they're trying too hard to impress the audience rather than make themselves relatable. And as we all know, we all like people if they're relatable, if we can feel like we're going on the journey with them. And then what I've been doing on the side of Entrepreneur's Handbook is doing a lot of ghostwriting and writing for a lot of other founders and trying to help them tell their stories. And all the lessons I've learned from both experiences are in this course now. And yeah, it's got the kind of the dirty secrets of all the things that I might not necessarily post publicly, because I know just like how powerful they are. So it's kind of keeping my best secrets and giving them away in this course. John's shout out to John as well for the landing page, as he's just highlighted there.
Right on. And the course that I'll be giving away is my 38 expert writing tips for medium writers. You can learn more at mediumwritingcourse.com. $79 course, you can get it for free. And then Writing Well, my best-selling Udemy course we'll be giving away for free at this event called Writing Revenue, Write Well, Get Published, and Earn Money. Got over 2,000 students and some good ratings. So we're giving these. Here's how you get these 2 courses for free. You'll notice in this event that down below there are emojis. The most engaged attendees who use emojis, send chat messages, we are tracking those in the background, and we'll be able to see at the end of this event who is engaged the most, and our top 2 winners will win these courses for free. So this is over $400 of value. And the folks who use the emojis at the bottom of the screen, send questions in the Q&A and chat messages, will win these courses. So we're going to let you know the winners of these courses via email after we take a look at the engagement analytics in this platform. Eric says, can you post the links of the courses? Yes, we can. In the meantime, also, at about 40 past and 30 minutes, we're going to award some writers. We'll be announcing the winners of these 4 awards. So a New Voice Award here, where we recognize a newcomer to Entrepreneur's Handbook who's written a stellar story. Hey, Dan Hillman, good to see you. Crypto Winner Award. So a voice in the crypto space through Crypto Handbook. We're going to be awarding a writer there. The Editor's Choice Award, Steven's going as our editor, will be awarding a winner of the Editor's Choice Award. And then the best story overall, with the most views, claps, and engagement on Medium in Entrepreneur's Handbook, we'll be recognizing our best story and inviting our winners up on stage if they're here. I know not everybody can be here today, and that's okay. We'll still recognize you anyway. But if you're in the crowd, John, Wink, we may invite you up to stage to have a chat with us. Stephen, I think your audio is still a little spunky. So with that reminder, the Q&A is open in the bottom right of the screen. Feel free to drop questions in there about building businesses, getting started as a writer, how to grow an audience, podcasts, publications, Medium. Sammy says, what an amazing platform here. Don't think I've attended anything this engaging online. Thanks, Sammy. We'll go ahead and show that on stage. All right, let's dive into our AMA. So we're going to do about 30 minutes of AMA, then we'll do the award giveaway, and then we'll wrap up. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Cool. I'll kick off because I got a question for Amar that I've been dying to know. With launching a podcast, hit the emojis down below if you've thought about launching a podcast. Susan, Genevieve, Paul saying sounds good, sounds great, cool. If you thought about launching a podcast, the big question is from 0 to 1. How do you get started? How do you create a podcast? Faridah says yes, and Susan's in the process of launching a podcast. How did you start a podcast and grow it to your first 10,000 downloads? Well, we have someone in the room today who's done that. And Amar, what would be your top tips?
Oh, so the other thing to mention as well is that on YouTube, it's got another 20 or 25,000 listens as well. So across all platforms, we're closing in on 50,000 soon. And I think the best tips is at the beginning. You've just got to pull the trigger, because so many people can think about it for years. Like, oh yeah, I really want to run a podcast. You meet them again in 3 years' time and saying the same thing. And the thing is, the worst thing that happens, right? Let's say you start a podcast, nobody listens. That is the worst thing that can happen. As long as you don't go very off topic and get a bit crazy with your views, the worst thing that can really happen is that people don't listen. And all you're doing then, you're putting in the reps, you're just learning. And the initial few episodes are always going to be a bit scary. Like, don't try and expect yourself to be perfect at the beginning. Record a few episodes, see how they sound, edit them, work out how it sounds. If you're happy with it, post it. If you're not, go back and work out, okay, what do I need to improve on? And the best thing I'd say is, well, early guests, make sure you've got a good relationship with them. It makes your life so much easier if you're already friendly with them. Because then if you do mess up, which you might, like everybody messes up at the beginning, you still have the occasional one, even now, where the audio didn't work properly or something like that. It's very difficult to do that if you've gone straight for the jugular. And let's say with Ed Williams or Mark Randolph, I did not want any problems with those. But by the time I interviewed them, I'd already gone through like small problems with people I knew well. So do that beginning. One, it makes me feel more comfortable. It makes things less scary. And one of the hardest bits about running a podcast is finding the right guests. And what happens is it snowballs, right? Because now when I email people to say like, hey, would you like to come on the podcast? I can be like, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? I've interviewed about 100 people, including the founders of Netflix and Twitter, which completely changes the reaction you get, right? So at the beginning, don't set your sights too high. Work on getting good people, hopefully that you know. And when you're interviewing anybody new, really make sure that you're building an actual personal relationship with them, because then they'll recommend you to their friends as well if you get that right. Whereas if you try and treat them like, oh, this is going to help me get views, or you're trying to be transactional with them, they're not going to really want to be friends with you anymore. And then you've just killed a relationship for no reason. So the most important thing about a podcast, I'd say, is this: like, anybody you meet, get to know them as a person, especially off the podcast as well, before and after the podcast. That's where the magic really happens, where you get to know them, you make them feel comfortable, and then you can get further guests like that. And that's how we've got a lot of the guests we've got now, is by warm introductions from previous guests. So I think that's the biggest thing you can do is, so if I summarize that, it's like, just do it, pull the trigger, start with people you know well, they're your friends, and make it easier for yourself. And then later on, people, when you're meeting people new and you've got the credibility, then make friends with them, so that it's an actual longer term relation. Because that's why I enjoy the most out of all of this, right? I get to meet some really cool people, get to chat to them, and get to learn their lessons. And if you focus on that people side of things, you can't really go too far wrong. And the audience will be able to tell as well. The audience can tell that curiosity coming through.
Brilliant. We've got a couple of follow-up questions in the chat, and all just FYI, if you use the Q&A, we're able to kind of categorize the questions as they're coming in, where in chat they might get lost. If we don't get to all your questions in chat, forgive us. We'll send a follow-up email afterwards. But Amar, so a quick one from Kav is, how do you know what your niche topic is? First of all, in the chat, do you pronounce it niche or niche? In the entrepreneurship space, this is a hot debate, and people get all worked up about whether it's niche or niche. What do we think? Throw it in the chat.
Oh, I think I say niche, but I don't know if that's a British thing. We can't hear you, Stephen, by the way. So in terms of how do you know the niche, I think, or the niche is kind of what, first of all, it's like, what are you really interested in that you can do 100 episodes in, 50 episodes, 100 episodes. I think it's actually, what day? On Thursday is going to be the 50th episode of the Entrepreneur's Handbook. And we've had a few bonus episodes as well. But you've got to have something which you love that much that you can do it for the long term. Because if you start a podcast thinking like, oh yeah, it's going to take off straight away, that's unlikely. You've got to be able to really love it, really keep going on about it. And that's going to come from what you're curious about. What podcast you like listening to is a big thing, right? If you're not willing to listen to other people talk about it, then you're probably not going to be willing to like interview people about it. And then also at the beginning, editing it and like listening back and getting the feedback. If you're bored listening to your own podcast, that's not a good sign. But sometimes you hear this from people where they're going for a topic which they think will be interesting rather than they're genuinely interested in. And every idea has already been done, really. The difference is like, what curiosity can you bring to it? How passionate do you sound about the topic? And like, if you look at business, for example, there's loads of business podcasts, but the ones that you remember, the ones where you can tell the host is actually engaged in what the conversation is. So focus on that rather than anything else about like, I need to get really, really tiny niche, which I know some people say, but it needs to be sustainable because it's all going to take a bit of a time and get there.
Yeah. Andre asks a question, are there more readers than listeners? Is it easier to get the audience with a podcast than with articles? And I had a quick thought on this. When I first started Entrepreneur's Handbook, it was really just a place, like a repository of my own curiosity, where the process of turning an idea in your head into cash in your hand, like income in your bank account, and how you connect the dots between those, like that 0 to 1 process, is different every time. There's like, for every business, every product, every industry, every entrepreneur, it's going to be different every time. Yes, there's similarities and that's the reason why Entrepreneur's Handbook exists, is to help folks see those tips and tools and stories where it's done. But as far as turning literally just an idea that pops into your head into money in your bank account, is something that I could write and ask questions to other people about until the end of time. So whether that's a podcast or an article, I think curiosity is kind of like the foundation of both, is what I'd say.
Yeah. So with this question as well from Andre, I think what's really interesting. So right now there is quite significantly more readers and listeners because we're more established. But it's also, you've got to think about the hierarchy of content, right? It's really easy to get millions of impressions on a TikTok or a LinkedIn post or a Twitter, because it's only a very small piece of content, right? But how deep is that, right? So somebody has seen your tweet. Are they going to have a bond with you? Are they going to have a personal relationship with you? Not really, right? With an article, it's better. With an article, somebody might be with you for 3 or 4 minutes. They might get to really learn your story. They can connect with you. And this is why I see a lot of people who really focus on, say, Twitter and LinkedIn, because they know they can get that easy attraction. Whereas a longer form article, it takes a reader on a journey. And I remember people whose stories I've read in an article way more than I remember if I just read a couple of tweets about them. So it's a different needs that it's hitting, and you can do both. And then a podcast is a level above that, right? Because if somebody's willing to sit and listen to me for an hour, then they're going to get to know me pretty well. Hopefully they like me. But at this stage, what matters more is not necessarily about people liking me, but people feeling they're aligned with me. So I'd rather, if people listen, then maybe discover actually they don't really like my style or like that. That's fine. You can't please everybody. But the people that stick around and that audience grows are the people who actually I say like me, but yeah, it's that idea of they want to hear my story. They want to hear the way I ask questions.
So, that reminds me really quick of Sean Puri of My First Million. I'm sure a lot of us in the room know Sam Parr and Sean Puri and My First Million. Great podcast if you haven't listened. But he said something yesterday. I was on the podcast that struck out to me. It's not about being well known. It's about being known well.
Yeah, I heard this as well. Yeah,
exactly your point, Amar. Where it's not about volume and quantity. It's about the medium, the tone, the authenticity, and being known well as opposed to well known. I thought that was pretty smart.
Yeah, and you can use the shorter form platforms to get people into your ecosystem, right? So it doesn't have to be either or. You can use Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever it is to get people to then direct them to your articles and then to your podcasts, whatever content you have. But you, at the end of the day, what you really want is them to get to that longer form content, because that's where they really get to know you well. And the people that know you well, they're the ones who are going to buy your products. They're going to support your business. They're the ones who are going to be your biggest cheerleaders more than anything else. So that's what we really believe in Entrepreneur's Handbook. And it's why we've got long form, and why we've got the long form both in writing and in podcasts and on YouTube as well, because that's the level above the podcast in terms of, if you're willing to sit there and look at my ugly face for an hour, then it shows you know me pretty well.
Yeah. Steve, let's do a mic check.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you sound beautiful. There's that lovely Irish brogue voice. So I got a question for you then, Stephen, from Al Anani. What is EH focused on post-recession in terms of content strategy? Are we going to see more crypto, Web3, maybe more articles incentivizing starting businesses because of the recession, etc.? What do you think? What do we look for with Entrepreneur's Handbook as far as getting published? What would you say?
I'd also be thinking maybe we're possibly still pre-recession, maybe not post. But no, I think we've always liked that lane of article that's proper builders. And obviously we did recently launch the crypto handbook just as the market decided to bottom out. So we're sort of going to be hopefully coming back up with the market in the crypto handbook. We will see going forward. No, Al's now a regular writer actually, and he does very much focus on the day-to-day building of what it's like to run a company. So yeah, I think that is a good lane going forward. And obviously, when the times get tough financially, a lot of people turn to side hustles and extra lanes of income, and we're very open to pieces that help others do the same.
Beauty. Yes, I think always helping people generate more income is we want the handbook to be practical and really make a difference in people's lives financially. And whether you don't have an idea and you're just starting out, or you're raising capital and you're scaling your team and you're pitching investors and trying to find product market fit and looking for creative growth initiatives, that as well fits really well with Entrepreneur's Handbook. Whether you're a freelancer, agency, side hustler, it's the gamut is pretty wide for what we're looking for, but it's more the inspirational story plus practical takeaways that you should find consistent in the pub. I'll also ask, I'm just saying this question, any plans for EH on TikTok? I know we're late to the party. We should. Yeah. So if we did, let me ask a question to that question. If we did do a TikTok, what content, like what would work well on TikTok from Entrepreneur's Handbook?
So we do have content that's going to be posted on TikTok as soon as I get around to it. This has been on my to-do list. So one of the things we obviously know is how short form content can help get people into the longer form content. So, and we've had some pretty amazing speakers on the podcast. So we've hired somebody to chop up all the podcasts, get like really engaging reels out of that and like the lessons. So that'll be coming to TikTok soon, as soon as I hire a VA to do it and like smash it all out. Because as much as I love posting 100 reels, it'd be great if I could hire somebody to do it for a little bit of money instead. But all of that's coming because we see how one of the things that we're very lucky, like I'm very lucky to be able to speak to such amazing entrepreneurs, and we want to share their knowledge. And that's what we do for Entrepreneur's Handbook, right? It's not about just like any of us on the stage, is we get to share all of you who are in here and all the people that write for us and people come on the podcast, all of their amazing views as well, and all the stuff that they've learned. And I think that's a great thing about Entrepreneur's Handbook is it's not my lessons or Dave's lessons or Stephen's lessons. It's all of those, plus anybody else who wants to contribute and can add value to our audience and our listeners and our readers.
Right on. I'm noticing Megan Morial. She asked the question, when is the right time to sell a digital product after you get started writing? Is there a follower or engagement threshold you should reach? That's a great question. Thank you, Megan. Any thoughts, guys?
So I would say there's no threshold you need to worry about. I'd say you're just testing things out, right? If you haven't got many followers at the beginning, that's fine. You can just experiment, because it might be only 100 people read it, but your content is so good that 20 people then buy a product, which is pretty amazing, right? And the only way to really find out is to start trying. The main thing I'd say is just don't try to sell too hard. If you focus on adding value during the article itself, then people, again, like it's a whole likability thing. The people like you, they believe that you're an expert in what you're doing. When they see that CTA saying like, oh, if you want to learn more, check out this, they're way more likely to click. Whereas if they feel like you're kind of being a bit inauthentic and you're just trying to direct them to that course or that product, that's when you might start turning people off. But very few people are going to get offended about a one-line CTA at the end of your article. So I wouldn't say there's anything you need to worry about in terms of follower counts or anything like that to stop you from doing that.
Love that. The only thing I would add is that you do need to kind of build up credibility and authority in the space. Like, so if we're talking about a course or like an info product that you then sell to your email list, well, that email list has to trust you and want your content even more so than the content you're already giving out for free. So what I've seen, and Amar, like you've done this as well, and there's others in the room likely who've done this, where you have, your Substack, your email list, you're posting on Medium, you're building that personal brand, and then you have kind of like your secrets, your tips, your tricks, like an inside look that you sell for a certain amount of money, or maybe like you've done interviews with hard to reach people And that's something that you aren't giving away for free. But then there's like a time component I've seen too, like consulting, where it's like you get an hour with me, or like it's very direct training, and where you engage with, you give people an opportunity to spend time with you. That's another way I've seen folks monetize their lists. But in general, I would say don't rush to sell, because that will erode trust with your list, your community, and then you've kind of lost all the work that you've spent time building up that list with.
Yeah, I think it's all to do with how hard you sell as well, because if you're going to do a 7 email sequence about buy this course, then you're going to turn a lot of people off. If it's something more subtle, you'll be okay, I think, in many regards. And it's just about finding that right level for yourself. And like I said, a lot of people, I think, try to position themselves as an expert too quickly. If I remember correctly, I think Megan Morial has done very well. So I can get up on LinkedIn in a moment, but I'm pretty sure if she's the person I'm thinking of, she's got a lot of credibility. So I would love to see what you're working on as well. We can post it in here if you want to show us. I think I remember reading articles.
Yeah, Medium's a great place to get started building an audience, finding your voice, and then not worrying about the sales component, because you can generate income on the Medium platform. And Medium's smart about removing CTAs, or not really letting ads or over marketing kind of blend into the content you find on Medium. At least that's what their mission and their business model is built around. So I would recommend starting out on Medium. Find your voice, find your community, branch out the sale, like whatever the product aspect, out to your own site. And then, like Amar is saying, put that one line CTA at the bottom. But Medium is a great place just to start out if you're a beginning writer.
Yeah, I think the theory goes, right, you only need your 1,000 true fans, right? So I think engagement is more important than following number.
Totally. All right, we got some more questions in the Q&A tab. I'm going to mark that as answered.
I think Stephen's just shaking his head at my comment.
I'm not answering that comment, yeah.
Cav says, do you find that your most successful content is the stuff you care most about, spend most time on? It's a good question. I think
I wish it was.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I think, what do you think, Dave?
For me, it's tough to tell. Like I wrote something the other day and I was like, this is going to go instantly viral, and it never does. And then the thing that like I whipped together in like 45 minutes and hit publish on, that's the thing that takes off. It's really hard to predict what's going to be successful or not. That's why you play the odds. Like you get your at bats and keep publishing. There was one quote that inspired me a while ago when I was getting started. There's a difference between successful writers and writers, and it's one word: published. And there's a difference between like writing and publishing. Often publishing is the hard part, and that can be like self-publishing, because publishing is when you put yourself out there, when you like get out into the square and raise your voice and like let people kind of like see your thoughts and how you see the world. And that if that's the muscle that needs to be built to then generate something that can take off, and like I said, play the odds.
Yeah, I think on this as well, the interesting thing is sometimes the content you care most about and you spend most time on, because you've got the curse of knowledge, you sometimes get in your own head. So you're talking so much about something which you know really well, but you're assuming too much of the audience. And so, for example, with me, like the article I wrote last week was very important to me, because it's about like, so my dad passed away in August, and trying to like how that's all going to fit in. And even when I was writing the article, I was telling about my personal story, but I was also thinking about like, how can this benefit the person reading? And that's the question what can you come back to. Is like, even if you care about the topic a lot, at the end of the day, if the readers to care, you've got to also think about, what does my experience mean for me that could potentially be useful for them? And sometimes I think that's the problem when somebody writes about something they care about a lot, is they start forgetting about the audience and how it could be useful to them. So that's why sometimes things do seem to work almost counterintuitively, because if something you don't care about too much, maybe writing from the perspective, oh, here's that's going to help people. Because when you care about it a lot, you might be like, this is what matters to me. And obviously for an article to be successful, it needs to matter to the audience as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I think one thing on this as well is that, and that writers, this always irks writers, but after you write something and hit publish, then you have to do the work of marketing it around, like sharing it around. And then when you share it around, it's not like you just throw up the headline and the link on Twitter. You can thread it out of like the outline or like the best takeaways. You can pull out an angle for LinkedIn. You get personal with your email list when you send it out. You make a video of it on TikTok. There's all sorts of ways that you take kind of that content and spread it out on platforms where people already are. Like you go to where they are, as opposed to just kind of saying like if you build it, they will come mentality, where it's like, I've hit publish, I've done all the hard work, they will automatically come. That's not always true. It's actually once you hit publish, then the work or another type of work begins. So that's something I always have to tell myself, is that hitting publish, you're about 50% done. Now there's more writing around this to do and tailor to the different platforms that we're on.
Yeah, agreed. Or else you're just praying to the algorithmic gods, and that is not often very kind.
Yeah, I think the other thing about it as well, because I saw some of the comments mentioned about how writing more articles is more like lottery tickets. And I think part of that is true, but it's also the better your content, like one article that's written well can be worth like 10 lottery tickets. So there is that basis of like, if you just like do loads of articles that aren't very good, you might have bought loads of lottery tickets. Or maybe you write one article a week or one article every 2 weeks, but that one article is worth 50 or 100 lottery tickets. And obviously I had the story of when I grew a Medium, then I was only writing once or twice a week, and my hit ratio was very high because I cared about everything I was writing about. Whereas other writers might write an article every single day or multiple articles a day, and they grow a lot slower, even though they had way more lottery tickets in theory. So that's why I think about it as well. As like, there's like that bubble, there's a 3D effect to it, I guess, right? So it's not just in 2D of like this is how many articles they've written, some are bigger as well. That made sense in my head. I'm not sure if it made sense out loud when I was doing my bubbles, but
I like the analogy.
That's great. Cav has a question. And it's back to a podcast. We got a lot of questions about podcasts. This is a hot topic today, which makes sense. And there's another question I saw around tools to use. We should talk about that as well, Omar. Really quick, before we jump into that, I do want to plug StreamYard. If anyone's heard of StreamYard, it's a lightweight tool, super easy to use. It's a studio in your browser. Beverly says yes. Cool. It allows you to do a video podcast with folks, but then you can download the audio tracks separately and upload those to Apple Podcasts. And actually, this is where I'm going to throw it over to you, Omar, and you can explain how to, like, the tools you use for Entrepreneur's Handbook podcast.
Sure. So it's funny because I was actually using Zencaster before, but then once Dave told me about what StreamYard can do and the different things changing, it actually makes way more sense for me to use StreamYard. So the next podcast I'm doing, we're going to be with StreamYard instead. So think about my stack now. I use, so it was Zencaster recording, but it's going to be StreamYard. Once that happens, and I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit it. So originally I was editing all the podcasts myself, but what I did is built the template, built the systems, and then now that's outsourced, so somebody else does it for me. Then I upload it using Buzzsprout. And there's a reason why I use Buzzsprout, because there are the ones out there that are cheaper. But Buzzsprout has a feature called Magic Mastering. And what that does is that it means that the podcast has that crisp feel to it because it equals out the leveling of the sound. So you can do this yourself. And if you're a sound engineer, you know what you're doing. But for most people average, like me, like you learned myself, the sound, I don't think I have the greatest ear for it. So it's better for me to rely on some of these other programs that will even it out for me. And then obviously I upload it to YouTube as well. So one thing I'd say as well is like, if people are listening to the podcast, make sure you share it so like we know that you're listening, and then we can see what your thoughts are. We can understand like what you're enjoying, what you're not enjoying so much, and get those types of guests on as well. So like let us know who you want us to get on, and if you know anybody who we should get on as well. I think that's my full tech stack. So in terms of like hardware as well, so I've got a Blue Yeti mic right here, which as I get closer here, you can see it probably gets a lot louder. But then I don't want to sit here because it looks weird when I'm on the camera. And I need to get a little thing that I used to hold it here, but then I didn't. Yeah, I speak too loud sometimes. And then for the camera, so this is actually my iPhone, and I use an app called Epoch Cam. And instead of me buying a DSLR camera, I can use my iPhone that I have already. And for £8, which is $8 at the moment because the pound is so rubbish, you pay that app once, and it just means all my quality now is really high. This is like 1080p, and what you'll find is most webcams are just they're like trash. I don't understand how they can charge a few $100s for it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a new one out called Opal, which apparently is pretty good, but most of the other ones aren't that great. What was the podcast software called? If you're thinking about the when I upload it to, that's called Buzzsprout. I can type that in the comments now. Yeah, but
Amar, how about when we post this on YouTube? Let's add like maybe some links to the products that you've mentioned. Before we move into the awards, I want to ask one more question. I think it's a very appropriate and human question from Genevieve, who asks, how often do you recommend showing up online? It's a good question. I've struggled with this one personally because it's like you could show up every day, several times a day, and burn yourself out. Is it like quality over quantity when showing up? Is it, I've heard that you should pick 2 platforms and focus in on those and not spread out between too many platforms. But I'm curious what you all think, and folks listening, if you have tips on how often should you show up if you want to grow your audience and like become, develop a personal brand. How often do you recommend showing up online? It's a really good question. Thank you, Genevieve.
Do you want to go first, Stephen?
Yeah, I think unfortunately the online world works against what's best for us as humans. Like, I think it rewards people who are willing to turn up every day, all day, at the expense of their health. And I feel that when you take any kind of breaks from platforms, whether they would admit it or not, your reach and your momentum seems to drop very quickly. And it can be very hard to regain that. So I think, unfortunately, you have to show up more than you want to.
Yeah, and I think I agree with what Dave said as well about this is why it's really important to pick 1 or 2 platforms. I would say start with 1 platform, to be honest. Pick which one you feel most comfortable with. Also, the one you're the biggest consumer of as well, I think is a big point. Like, rather than, like, if you never use TikTok, then don't start on TikTok, because then you're having to learn so much about how the platform works at the beginning. Whichever platform you use as a consumer the most, that's the best one to usually start on. If you're reading on Medium every day, then start on Medium. If you spend most of your time on Twitter, start on Twitter. And one of the tough things as well, because even I'm not very good at this, is that to really go quickly, what you should be doing is engaging with a lot of people. And I find that really exhausting as a person. Like, I'm not very good at commenting on everybody's posts and that kind of thing. But I know that's a good way to grow, especially at the beginning. So what I'd say is, if you're going to start out, pick 1 platform. Let's say you're going to spend an hour on it each day, okay, or 2 hours on it each day. Have half of that time is you creating content, and half of that time is you engaging with other people, and work out who the people are that really align with what you want to do, and then follow them. Make sure you're commenting on all their content, learning about what they're doing. You can study them. Because the big thing I think a lot of people make a mistake about is they're trying to copy the people who are completely different to what their goals are. And for example, if you look at, say, me, like if you look at, for example, different writers on the platform, I am very low volume, and I try to put a lot of care and time into everything I write. Whereas other people like Tim Denning, for example, might write 15 articles a week. And that's because he's got a certain skill set that enables him to write that higher volume. So it's working out what's the right volume for you and what your energy levels are. And generally, if you can create high quality content more regularly, you're going to do better. And then the balance of whether you should do more high quality and low volume or high quantity and low volume depends on your own skill set and your own values.
Okay, I have to ask this question. Who are writers or folks online, content creators, we could say, that you aspire to be like, or you look up to, or think are a good model for who you'd like to be like? Al Anani says Justin Welsh. I don't know if I know Justin Welsh. Maybe I need to get out more in the world of Instagram.
No, I've interviewed him. I've interviewed him.
Twitter and LinkedIn, I think, right? It's the main ones there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think his episode, I want to say in the 30s somewhere. His episode has done pretty well. Yeah, he was very popular. Justin Welsh is an interesting one because he's very heavily reliant on templates. So it's a different style to, say, me, for example. So it's like we said, but it's finding the right. There's people are doing well in different ways. So it's working out what's the strategy that aligns with you the best. I'm trying to think, who do I look up to?
I got another one, Justin Yanowitz. He's the founder of Blockworks, and he's just a content powerhouse. And the content that he puts out, I think he focuses primarily on LinkedIn and Twitter. At least that's where I follow him. But all of his posts have an edge of news, like it's kind of cutting edge insights due to like the network he's been able to build, but then also like data backed insights as well, which is really strong for the crypto industry. But what do you guys think? Do you have any?
Yeah, I'm a bit more journalistic in what I read, but someone called Casey Newton, who left the journalism world to self-fund his own Substack things called Platformer. And he's basically trying to self-sustain high-quality journalism within like business and tech. I think on Medium, I would shout out Herbert Louis, or Lou, however you would say his second name. Always admired Herbert's work, although he doesn't write too regularly on Medium, I don't think. But
yeah,
I think in there.
For me at the moment, I'm focused on the podcast side quite a bit. So as Dave mentioned earlier, Sean Puri and Sam Parr of My First Million. Because what's interesting about them too is that you just tell they're like best friends basically, and some of the people they get on, they've already got such strong relationships, and they've had like Dharmesh, the founder of HubSpot. So getting these people on, and it's that's kind of I've tried to break down people as much as I can, so they feel vulnerable and they can have a laugh on the podcast as well. So that's somebody I look up to in that kind of style of how do you get people to be able to like make jokes on the podcast and feel relaxed. And then on the writing side, I'd say even somebody like Mark Manson, for example, what I'm looking at is how do people write, say, 15-minute articles, 20-minute articles, and keep people engaged that entire time? And for me, that's the next challenge, right? I know that I can write a 5-minute article or a 4-minute article that's going to get people engaged, but I want to keep learning and keep progressing. And that's like, how do I get that level of 20-minute articles, for example? That's just amazing. And another one who writes for Entrepreneur's Handbook is like that as well, Arthur Hayes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you guys check him out, it's like how much personality he puts into his articles, how he is able to keep people engaged for such a long time. So an incredible read ratio for such long articles. I think is somebody else. So I think people should check out if they haven't already checked him out.
Right on. We got about 15 minutes left. I want to transition over to our awards. We're going to recognize our winners, the writers who have done an exemplary job with their writing, published an Entrepreneur's Handbook on Medium over the last 2 months. And so we have 4 awards we're going to be giving out. New Voice, Crypto Winner, Editor's Choice, and the Best Story Award. And so I just want to remind those who are new in the room that we're doing a giveaway for the most engaged attendees through the emojis down at the bottom of the screen or chat messages. If you're active in both, that's being tracked in the background. And the 2 most engaged attendees will win Amar's best-selling course here and my course, 38 Expert Writing Tips, as well as a Udemy course here. You'll get these for free as being engaged at this event that we're in today. With that, we're going to go to our first award, New Voice Award. So this award recognizes a new personality who's come to Entrepreneur's Handbook to tell their story. And with that, I'm delighted to award, we need a drum roll, to award Nir Zicherman. If you don't know Nir, he is now at Spotify leading their audiobooks division, but he is the co-founder of Anchor. Speaking about podcasts, Anchor is also a great podcast, like audio creation platform that Nir helped start. So he's recently took to Medium to start writing some of the stories and insights he's learned from scaling Anchor and selling to Spotify. And so he wrote this piece, Uno, the Startup Manual. It's just fun. You know, he was on a plane playing Uno with his daughter, and he just started to see similarities between the game of Uno and entrepreneurship. And I thought it was clever, smart, genius, great voice. And so we are awarding Nir with this award, and I look forward, Nir. He's not able to make it here today, but when he sees this, congratulations, and we look forward to hearing more. My request, personal request, would be that you write a story about what it was like to sell Anchor to Spotify. I would love to read that in Entrepreneur's Handbook. So congratulations, Nir. We'll move on to our next award. Over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, I think you also want to fire on the award.
Yep.
This one's going to go out to Aaron Dinin, who I believe is teaching right during this live webinar, but that's okay. And this is for his piece, which I think is a perfect example of a curiosity gap, I think is what we'd like to call it. And in the title, sort of, you would suggest the word billionaire would mean success, and then he follows it straight away with destroyed, i.e. failed. And I believe that has driven some serious traffic to his article. And then his style is very personal. We like Aaron. Aaron writes for his handbooks weekly, and all his stories follow the same personal narrative, and they're very open, they're very vulnerable, and they're always very, very insightful. So well done, Aaron. I'm sure if we have another one of these events, he will join us one day.
Yeah, it'd be great to have Aaron show up live and give us a little tutorial on what he's seen and learned, and maybe his writing process. That'd be interesting. Over to you, Amar.
Yeah. So for the crypto award, we have Franz Schrepf, who's written about how he started building Web3 and the things he wished before. And we love this kind of story because it's somebody's going out there and doing it, finding that, okay, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, I made this mistake, and then sharing it with other people, because that's the truth of it, right? Anybody starting a business, we're going to make mistakes, and it's good to be open and honest about that. And then through the content of Entrepreneur's Handbook, we're trying to help people so that they make a few less mistakes, maybe, but you're still going to make mistakes. And if you make those mistakes, tell us about it.
Perfect. Yeah, I can't agree more with the vulnerability in entrepreneurship. It's really like how we learn best is like failure is not failure when you're an entrepreneur. It's learning, and it's part of getting your reps in, and it's part of like earning your stripes in the entrepreneurship. Where I was talking to a guy the other day where he's been sued twice, and it's like before being sued twice as an entrepreneur, investors didn't take him seriously, but now that he's kind of done some battle in the courtroom, investors are having taken calls with him now. All right, last one. Best Story Award. So this is the one with the most views, most engagement, most comments. And over to you, Stephen.
Yep, this one is going out to John Brosio, who is in the chat, I hope, or was in the chat. And I believe, Dave, you can invite him.
Yep, John Brosio is in the house. John, if you're able to join us, I'm going to send you an invite. Here, you'll see it. I'm going to add you to the stage. We'd love to give you some confetti on stage. I'll send you that invite and ask you a couple questions about this story.
But yeah, while we're waiting, I think John's a good example again of what Amar just touched on. It's like these things he shares, he's also doing, he's also learning. And this is not just stuff researched from Google. This is a man who can do it, and the man is here, I believe. Oh.
Look at this. John, how are you? Good to see you. Congratulations.
Amazing. I love these AMAs. So thanks for having me.
This story did really well on Medium. Congratulations. Tell us a little bit about this story and about yourself.
Yeah. So I think going off of what, I forget who was saying it earlier, about like how do you find your, I say niche, maybe that's my Midwest American accent showing, but it's like, how do you find your niche? How do you develop it? So a little bit of my background is I worked in fine dining for many years, and I struggled a lot with finding credibility, or like even, so I don't think Amar knows this, but the first ever story that I submitted to EH was rejected by him. And that today,
was it really harsh? Was it really harsh rejection? Like, this is rubbish.
I mean, back then maybe a little bit, but it's been my most successful in terms of like, you know, monetization and viewership ever, which is kind of funny that now that I look back at it. Anyway, I always came into this writing with a lot of imposter syndrome because I come from the restaurant industry. I was never trained in business. So I became obsessed with learning about a lot of things, especially in the digital entrepreneurial world. And one of those things is landing pages. Like, I've just become obsessed of like, how do you build it? How do you include storytelling? How do you make it clear, concise, and actionable? And this is kind of the some findings of that. And I'm actually quite surprised. I had no idea that it did that well. So it's pretty cool.
Brilliant. And a fun fact, Amar's course page, which we were showing earlier in the show, uses this model that you put together, John. John, quick one before we let you go. What would you say to someone, whether it's a writer or an entrepreneur, who struggles with imposter syndrome and kind of doesn't quite think that they can make moves online? What would you say?
So obviously, like, I feel like the easy answer is borrow Nike's slogan and just do it. But sometimes that's hard, right? It's never just that easy. So about a month ago, I was on a call with Tony Stubblebine and a couple of really cool and popular Medium writers. And we all went around and we shared, like, what is your most fundamental piece of advice? And I think, so I've been doing this for like 4 years now. And for about 3 years, I was just in my lane. I was publishing, and I wasn't networking with people like the three of you and other people that I've networked with. In the last 9 months or so, I've taken that exponentially and run with it. And I think, so there's two kinds of like networking. I look up to people like Justin Welsh. I look up to the three of you, and I can network to people that are like 100 steps in front of me. And I can network with people that are in line with me and on a similar path in their journey. And I think when you reach out to people that are, you know, with you at the ground floor, or maybe have 7 to 20 pieces of content published, and you reach out, you get on a Zoom call, or you just do DM, email, whatever, it makes you realize, like, oh, I'm not alone. Like, I'm not the only one who's scared. So sure, yeah, just do it is easy advice, but also, like, build yourself like a board of directors of like, hey, we're all in this together. And what are you learning? What are you struggling with? Can you take a look at this piece? I'm kind of nervous about it before it goes live. That's even scary too, but that to me has been like okay, we're good. I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. So
I love that. Build yourself a personal board of directors. That's a strong takeaway. Sounds like a good Entrepreneur's Handbook article in the future.
And a point on that as well. So I actually was in LA in March, and I met up with John there in person. And he's a lot taller than I expected he was going to be, and I was probably a lot shorter than he thought I was going to be. And we had a whole day out, right? And we went to the beach, all that kind of stuff. And that's one of the important things as well about this kind of world, is that you can make real friends from it. And it doesn't just have to be about writing or about anything like that. You can really get to know people. And also, he makes a mean steak. I think that's an important thing to know as well. It goes with the task.
Critical.
Colorado ribeye.
Yeah. So he's a man of many talents.
Yeah,
I worked in the restaurants.
Yeah.
Well, John will have to sync up after this. Colorado ribeye. I'm there. I will fly. Will fly for steak. Well, guys, we got 2 minutes left. And I wanted to say thank you. John, congratulations. You get $100. And all of our award winners get a $100 bonus for winning. But you won the Best Story Award from Entrepreneur's Handbook. I'm going to drop you from stage. So thank you, John. Everybody say thank you.
It's like
John.
100 pounds, baby. I'm rich.
Yeah, 100 pounds. Cool. With that, I'm going to wrap this up. Say thank you, everyone, to coming. Amar, Stephen, thanks for doing this. We're going to do more of these. And a question that I'd love to hear from you all, whether it's through email or drop it in the chat before you go. How can we make these better? What was the best part of this event? We want to do these monthly and even more frequently. This is the only second one. We're going to have a guest speaker next month. We're actually in conversations about having Tony Stubblebine as well show up for one of these. Tony, if you're watching, that was the public ask right there. But thank you so much for coming. We'll let you know to the most engaged attendees. We'll let you know. We'll contact you via email that you won. And same to our award winners. You'll see $100 come through on Venmo. But with that, anything else, Amar, Stephen, that you want to leave us with?
No, just keep sharing your stories, everybody. We'd love to hear them. Keep engaging with us. Keep coming to these events. We want to see more of you.
Find us on Twitter. Subscribe to Entrepreneur's Handbook podcast. Listen to Amar's great conversations. And have a great one. See you all next time. Thank you.
Yeah.